Welcome everyone to the bottom of the coconut tree. We've fallen. It's been a hard fall, and get up, shake it off, and let's go, people. This is the Bitchuation Room. I'm Francesca Fiorentini, your host. We've got a great show. Comedian, labor organizer Nato Green is back after a long dry spell, a very long dry spell, very sad. He's going to break down a few things with me. Obviously, Joe Biden dropping out of the race, Kamala Harris being Biden's endorsement. What the F is Brat? Am I using that correctly? And let's all show our age collectively. Also, we were going to have Jonathan Smucker on the show, a progressive strategist and movement organizer. But at the last minute, he couldn't make it, which is so sad. He'll be back. And instead, we nabbed ourselves James Zogby, Zogby of the Arab American Institute, who has written a lot about Biden's policies in Gaza, and now, as of recent, has some thoughts about potentially how there could be a shortened primary leading up to the convention. I believe he's got a crazy plan. I don't know if he still sticks by it, but I'm really excited to hear from him in about 45 minutes time. If you're listening as a podcast, time means nothing to you. If you're an alien that's found this somehow, if you got the podcast, sift through podcast job, which I'm so sorry if that's your job. If you colonize Earth and you've got to listen to all the podcasts. Fuck. That's. But anyway, the point is what happens to us, and we don't. We're still living in it. We are existing in the context of everything that we live in and everything that came before us or something. And we're ready to be unburdened by what has been. Cue crooked, weird smile. But for now, if you're here listening as a podcast, give this podcast 5 stars on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify or wherever you listen to it. Also, you can like and share the stream if you're streaming live on YouTube or streaming after the fact on YouTube. You can send in some love, some super chats. You can send in your gratitude in the form of becoming a member of the show over on YouTube, like Chet Lee, like Mia Han, like Michael Bascom, like Benjamin Morrill giving out a sub. Thank you so much. If you're like, what does that get you? Well, it gets you a bunch of bonus content every Wednesday. I do an hour-long, usually solo stream. Last week, we looked at the craziest moments of the RNC, which included a bulldog named Baby Girl, probably the highlight. I mean, definitely the flyest chick at the RNC. And it gets you so many things like discounts on our union-made merchandise. So support the show by becoming a member, or actually, this doesn't, if you ever... You got to become a patron. Patreon.com/Bitchuation Room is where you go to get all those perks. 20% off merch at bitchuationroom.com. Tote bag stickers, shirts. Oh my. Anyway, so thank you so much in advance for your support. You can also tip the show TBR-live on Venmo, TBR live on Cash App. And I'm going to bring in Nato pretty soon because we'll get in. Let's just get in. Let's just do. What do you like? What are you bitching about? So because I knew I was going to have so much to bitch about, I actually did a brief / 48-minute long live stream on Monday night. You can all check that out on youtube.com/FrannyFio. I talked about Kamala Harris for a long time, but I will abbreviate what I said there, which is let's not look a gift horse in the mouth, shall we? It's a pretty good situation we're in compared to a week ago. As friend of the show, Emma Vigeland, put it pretty succinctly over on Twitter, last week our choices were between an 81-year-old whose ailing brain was on anti-Arab racism autopilot and the threat of fascism. Now it's between someone who can communicate, ran to Biden's left in 2020, isn't a dogmatic Zionist, and the threat of fascism. It's a good outcome. Yes, threat of fascism, still bad, I would argue. Chances of beating threat of fascism, demonstrably better. I think we leftists love to First of all, we love to imagine we're actually in the game when sadly we're not. As Nina Turner put it, this is a centrist fight. Let the centrists fight. Kamala's a centrist, largely. Biden's a centrist. Everyone else trying to, who were calling for him to step down, were largely center left, if not center. The time of a real progressive alternative, I think, sadly has ended. And again, I say that as a progressive alternative that can beat Donald Trump, sadly has ended. So I understand some folks want to play purity politics. I think it's a time to fight. It's a time to play power politics, not purity politics. And I expanded on that live stream. Maybe I'll put it out as a podcast, but go give it a listen. I'm sure Nato and I will talk a little bit more about that. But that's what I'm bitching about, is sort of some folks on the left who insist on being marginalized, even when we have real shots, and even when we have a candidate now who is far more amenable and susceptible to pressure than Joe Biden. He just has like pressure from his brain, like his milky brain, that was it. So that's a good position to be in. Again, national elections, federal elections, it's a different ball game. We are not fighting. We're not voting for our hopes. Sadly, we're voting for our best opponent. And with that, let me bring in Nato. Maybe he's going to switch it up. I can bitch about other things. What do I want? My arms hurt. I don't know. Nato, what you got? Nato Green, union organizer, father, comedian. Nato, how you feeling?
Francesca, this is a difficult time for me. Do you realize that I am a white male leftist comedian, and I have not podcasted in a month? In this month of all months, you realize what torture it's been for me.
You're so backed up. Do you want to be on the Piers Morgan Bookers list? Because I could make that evil happen for you real quick.
I'm real backed up right now. I've got podcast blue balls.
Okay, I'm sure you have something else to bitch about, but before the show, I deliberately said, Nato, I've been waiting to cover a story with you for a while now. Yep. Will you bitch about this? And you reluctantly agreed. And part of that was, most of it is the Teamsters president, Sean O'Brien, speaking to the RNC last week. Here is just a 20-second clip of some of what he had to say. Not representative of everything he had to say, but it's enough.
And I think we all can agree, whether people like him or they don't like him, in light of what happened to him on Saturday, he has proven to be one tough SOB.
So that was a bit of the beginning of his speech. He did go on and talk about corporate consolidation and power and Amazon and, talking about the working man and whatnot and working people. And it was kind of combative for an audience that had no idea how to respond. They were like, I guess do we hate the rich? I kind of want to be rich / am rich. Is it okay if I'm a billionaire? But that was also part of it. Nato was kind of like giving a lot of credit to Donald Trump, giving a lot of credit to himself for speaking. And a lot of people were actually like, hey, Francesca, what do you think? And I'm sure they asked you, what do you think? Because he got a message out there. He was able to put working class issues, real ones, union issues, in front of a bunch of, elitists, venture capitalist darlings at the RNC. But what was your take of this?
Well, Francesca, and to the Frantifa, I don't think I've been on this show since our live episode in January for Sketchfest, and I haven't been on because I've been. Is that possible?
I think once since.
I've been in negotiations. I've been in the thick of union campaigns for months, and so I'm sort of in a little bit of a lull between some things. Yeah, I mean, first of all, like what Sean O'Brien's speech, like a lot reminded me of these like white dude edgelord backlash comics who were like, nobody can handle how edgy I am, and I'm like, all right, well then say something interesting. Oh, you're not going to? You're just going to talk like you're going to talk a good game about how provocative you are, and then not be provocative,
right?
Like just stop faffing about and say the N-word if that's what you really want to do, and then stand behind it. You know what I mean? And I think the theme of today's episode, Francesca, is learning to live with the contradictions.
Ooh.
That we are living with we are testing and growing our capacity to hold seemingly contradictory thoughts at the same time, and not have to resolve the contradictions or pick a side, but to live within their tension and their frisson, if you will.
I don't
Indeed.
even know what frisson means. I know what frisé is, if it's anything like it.
Frisson is like when you just like rubbed fully clothed in middle school on some like on the freak train.
So we need to okay. We need to dry hump the contradictions, is what you're saying.
It's French for dry humping. Because on the one hand, this year, in the last year, the Teamsters had this incredible contract fight with UPS and got some major concessions, on the eve of a strike. Sean O'Brien, let's not forget, threatened to fist fight a Republican senator during a hearing.
He did. And Bernie had to be like, "Oh no, stop it!
No.
You're a sitting senator."
Republican senator, former UFC fighter, and it reminded me of the old adage that if you're ever betting on a fight between an actual and literally any Teamster from Boston, bet on the Teamster from Boston. So, and most recently, the independent Amazon labor union in Staten Island voted to affiliate with the Teamsters in order to be able to expand and build upon their historic win in Staten Island after being unsuccessful getting a contract. So there's some obviously some good stuff happening in the Teamsters union. At the same time, as O'Brien mentioned in his speech, there is a history of Teamsters endorsing Republicans, partly because of their relationship to the fossil fuel industry, partly because and so what came across in his speech, and I think I've sort of seen a lot of internal frustration in the labor movement of the way that O'Brien talked about corporate elites and talked about working people, but talking about it in that space to the Donald Trump Republican Party sort of continued to play into the tried and true stereotype that the Joe the plumber, the typical union member, is a burly white guy from the Midwest, or and that's actually not the labor movement of today. The typical union member today isn't a burly blue collar white guy; it's a woman of color working in the care economy in California. That's who the typical union member is, and we have to reorient. So when we talk about and that's I feel like the sort of on the left, people over theorize what intersectional means, but what intersectional means at a basic level is there are Teamsters who are immigrants, there are Teamsters who are queer, there are Teamsters who need abortions, there are Teamsters who are Black and are getting fucked with by the cops, and those people bring all of themselves to their participation in the Teamsters union. And Sean O'Brien got up in front of the Republican Party and said, those people are an important part of the Teamsters union.
Right.
And it's leading to a lot of, someone is already, one of the vice presidents of Teamsters has already declared that they're going to challenge him because there's so much internal discontentment within the Teamsters. The Teamsters social media feed popped off. I'm sure you saw, Francesca, that there was a minute where the Teamsters official Twitter account, while Sean O'Brien was speaking, was tweeting anti-RNC statements.
Jesus.
Later, but the screenshots are out there if people want to look. But whoever runs the official Teamsters Twitter account was not having it and challenging O'Brien's speech. So it's a sign that the labor movement is alive and well. The last thing I'll say is this is I know Biden has been a nightmare on Gaza. And when we talk about living with contradictions, and at the same time, this has been the best labor presidency of my lifetime. And so the fact that there's enough energy in the labor movement right now that on the one hand, we have Sean O'Brien, who's making a play to gambling, basically. I mean, this is what the Teamsters that I know are telling me. They think that Trump is going to win and that he's going to be the only labor person Trump talks to.
Right. Right. He was trying to hedge a bet. I mean, and it's not, to me, look, I understand the anger, and I think not strategic if you're not Sean O'Brien. You know what I mean? But if you're Sean O'Brien, and I guess if you're a white Teamster, it's like he's hedging his bets. He's trying to get close to the guy he thinks is going to be in power, like everyone is. And especially then when Joe Biden wasn't dropping out of the race. You know, I guess the only thing I could say, I think that's a little bit craven. It's a little bit self-interested. The only thing I would say is I would be okay with it if it was only a bit. If he was like trying to get all of the Republicans there to promise, oh, so you're going to hire union labor, right? Even for your new buildings, Jared? Or like, like trying to do it as like a fuck you and a hold them to it. But it wasn't that. It was very much tooting his own horn. And to your point about the discontentment, Teamsters HQ in DC, this is according to Kim Kelly's Twitter, is lit up with insults from someone who seems a little unimpressed with Sean O'Brien's RNC appearance. It's a projection of International Brotherhood of Trumpsters. Sean O'Brien is a class traitor. Trump, stand your butt up so Sean O'Brien can kiss your ass, which is a direct reference to what Nato was saying of stand your butt up so I can fight you when he was trying to fight the senator, former UFC fighter, which Jesus Christ. So yeah, people are unhappy. But yeah, he's making a bet and he's perhaps selling out some of his workers in the process.
But it's actually like there's a way that there's enough dynamism in the labor movement right now that the conversation is exciting to me. Like, I know we're going to talk about this later, but like, we're in a moment where on the one hand you have Sean O'Brien who's speaking to the RNC, on the other hand you have Sean Fain of the United Auto Workers who's making the exact opposite argument, saying, the threat to working people isn't the person trying to get across the border to feed their family just like we are. The threat to working people is the billionaire class, and we can't let them divide us. I know we're going to talk about it later, but today, it's out that 6-7 unions representing 6 million workers are calling for like an end to military aid Israel. So, that like having been in the labor movement for a long time, like there are moments where labor reaches a crossroads about like, what are we about? And those conversations are not abstract. Those have to be like actually hashed out in the field of struggle. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like people are going to do things in the world and then, the proof will be in the punani.
I appreciate that pivot. And with that, speaking of punani, but before we move on to what happened this week.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay. Nato, we have a sponsor for this show for the first time.
The Bitchuation Room, sponsored by Pussy.
the punani and Sunset Lake CBD. Sunset Lake CBD helps me get to sleep, helps me go night-night, helps me shut off my goddamn brain every single night with their sleep gummies, which has CBD, CBN, melatonin. They also have tinctures. They have salves, which is amazing. When my arms hurt because I have like tendonitis, I put on their like lidocaine and CBD salve. It's amazing, and I want to call it salve. And it salves me. And I think you all should check it out. SunsetLakeCBD.com, coupon code FRANTIFA for 20% off your entire order. Also, I can't believe, Nato, I haven't sent you some stuff because I get some samples.
Oh, I would love some because I have trouble sleeping. I'm a big like fall asleep and then wake up in the middle of the night and spend a couple hours panicking in the middle of the night.
Yes.
And then go back to sleep.
Yes.
So, and I'm glad to hear that CBD for my local government policy nerds doesn't stand for Community Benefits District in this context.
No, it does not. But that would also be censored by YouTube potentially. But hell yeah. I will send you some gummies. Just you and you will be wowed. I'm sorry, I didn't know how to land that. This is the week where, guys, let's get into it. So obviously this was the week where Joseph Robinette Biden finally threw in the towel by dropping out of the presidential race and becoming a hero, a legend, a god, the most selfless man to ever walk the earth. He's always put America first, except for the years that he's definitely not, because he's put Israel and himself first for the last at least 9 months.
Joe Biden's really showing us a thing or two about step up, step back. We've been waiting all these years for one white guy to shut the fuck up in public, and finally when it counted.
I mean, I'm interested. There is a right-wing narrative that this was a coup, which is very funny. But I think a better angle for them would have been that he was canceled. Like, I think they should have been like, "Oh my God, the Democrats canceled Joe Biden."
Because of people on the internet.
Yeah, exactly. People were mean. I can't believe he like capitulated to bullying. But he did. And he did so via a beautiful letter, which says things that I'm not going to say here, but it was, it was kind of nice. It was, oh, it's too small to read. Whoops, never mind. No.
Yeah, if you can't read the font because it's too small, it says, "It's over for you hoes."
So yes, effectively it's over for you hosts, quickly followed up by an endorsement of Vice President Kamala Harris. My fellow Democrats, I've decided not to accept the nomination and focus all my energies and my duties as president on my duties as president for the remainder of the term. My very first decision as the party nominee in 2020 was to pick Kamala Harris as my vice president, and it's been the best decision I've made. Today, I want to offer my full support and endorsement for Kamala to be the nominee of our party this year. Democrats, it's time to come together and beat Trump. Let's do this. So there you have it. Yeah, I don't know. Nato, what did you think? Did you feel like this was coming? Or was a part of you, like a part of me, I just sort of like broke off and sailed into sea because I was like, oh, I don't think he's going to resign.
I mean, but to be clear, like I was not as I was not as confident as a lot of people that he should resign. Do you know what I mean? Like I was,
a scared little bitch. Got it.
I mean, potato. Because like for me, it wasn't like the way that people were talking about it was sort of magical thinking about like, yeah, you just put somebody at the top of the ticket and then miracles occur. But it's like, it's not just the person, but it's like, how much money are they raising? Where are they putting people in the field? What are their positions? How are they going to control the media narrative? What's the message? Like, so it wasn't like, it was like the whole thing was lackluster, but it also just felt, and all, I wasn't convinced that like, until someone else is the nominee and then has the experience to get savage, like it's not a foregone conclusion that anyone else is going to do better. But, I'm also like, I'm a pessimist and, pessimist to the intellect, as the saying goes. And so, it just seemed like it was inevitable. Like it seemed like the dynamic was untenable.
Yeah.
And once Pelosi was on the case, I was like,
look out.
It's over for these hoes.
She did say we can do this the easy way or the hard way. And you can only imagine what the hard way was going to be. Like, I'm thinking just some, I don't know, some framing from maybe Hunter Biden has a whole other laptop that Nancy Pelosi's got with like even bigger dick pics. Like, who knows?
Right.
You know what I mean?
As a San Franciscan, I don't like her. She doesn't like me. Her staff don't like me personally, because in December of 2016, I may have delivered a 7-foot styrofoam spine to her office to encourage Democrats to have a backbone against Trump and the right-wing attack at the time, and they are still not over it. I continue to get reports. But that being said, I mean, to quote my own stand-up, like Nancy Pelosi on January 6th was on the phone saying, I wish to Mike Pence.
Well, you froze
in the face and I'll go to jail and I'll be happy. Like,
she
wanted
to punch him.
Yeah.
And she's like an Italian grandma,
Yeah, right. And so she can bring it. And she did. And I'm glad that like Democrats decided that fucking, finally got the message that saving the country from fascism was worth more than like their stupid institutional norms for the first time. And I think it's this would be significant. And like, I'm also, in some ways relieved that one of the things that's so illustrative about it, and this is like how disciplined the Democratic Party can be as a party when they get their shit together. They close ranks around Kamala. They close, like, in the same way that the party establishment closed ranks around Joe Biden in the 2020 primary, in the same way that they closed ranks around Hakeem Jeffries. Like the party establishment wanted to stop Donald Trump and couldn't. And like the Democratic Party sort of has that level of structure and control. I think that's really interesting.
I mean, what's interesting is I don't think they always have a plan, but I agree they know how to close ranks. And as Bernie people, we understand they do know how to close ranks pretty tightly. And
it's usually to fuck with us.
It's usually to fuck with progressives. And it can be good, obviously. I think it absolutely can be good. And, it was interesting earlier today, even I was on with, subjected to another awful Piers Morgan panel. And the one thing I said was like, look, at least the Democrats have the fucking audacity to like call back their incumbent president rather than like stick with a 34 felony count criminal psycho like Donald Trump. It's just like I understand, we'll talk about the convention later on and what it could all look like. But the idea that this isn't like somehow not democratic or it wasn't transparent, it's like, I'm pretty sure this entire thing's been very out in the open, more out in the open than some would have liked. And they paid attention to the red flags finally. And we'll talk about maybe why they didn't. But let's talk about Kamala. She obviously is the vice president. She has raised $100 million since the endorsement from Joe Biden on Sunday. She, on Sunday night, had a call with an organization called Win with Black Women that was attended by 44,000 volunteers. So when we talk about energizing a needed base of volunteers, I think, Nato, you rightfully said, it's about your campaign office, it's about your structure, it's about the media narrative. Like these are the grassroots organizers that are needed, and they weren't necessarily there. In fact, reports were that Biden's campaign was slow to get up and running. Right. She has already secured the delegates needed to win the nomination at the convention. She hasn't won it, of course, yet, because it hasn't happened yet. But she's got, I guess, 1,152 of the 1,986 delegates she would need to win the nomination. Biden had 3,800. Again, those delegates are free. They fly, my pretties. They can go anywhere. Other people can throw their name into the race right now. Obviously, a lot of people are stoked. They're amped. Here she was yesterday at the Delaware election headquarters, because of course it's going to be Delaware. And just take a look at this sense, the difference. Let's do a little compare and contrast with the former candidate.
So in the days and weeks ahead, I, together with you, will do everything in my power to unite our Democratic Party, to unite our nation, and to win this election. As many of you know, before I was elected as vice president, before I was elected as United States Senator, I was the elected Attorney General, as I've mentioned, of California, and before that I was a courtroom prosecutor. In those roles, I took on perpetrators of all kinds. Predators who abused women, fraudsters who ripped off consumers, cheaters who broke the rules for their own gain. So hear me when I say, I know Donald Trump's type.
Okay, so other than that being a pretty good line, openly saying predator, like, I gotta tell you, Nato, hashtag no neo-lib. But hearing someone openly call Donald Trump a predator is like, hey, yeah, thank you. Like what we've been saying for so long. So it's nice to see that and hear that. And also, did you notice how much she tried not to smile or laugh? Because this is the only talking point that the right has against her right now, is that she laughed weird.
It's weird because it's like, oh no, that their line of attack is that she's an easy laugh. Like, she seems too fun. You know what I mean? Like, what a dumb,
totally.
What a dumb, like, no, no. Can you imagine, like, Donald Trump having a genuine moment of mirth? Like,
right.
Can you imagine Donald Trump like actually belly laughing? Like, ugh, it's like the thought is uncomfortable. Did you see the thing? There was a thing on that I saw on Twitter. It will never be next X or whatever. On the about the the debate, her staff had asked her like how she would respond if Trump was like pacing behind her the way that he did for Hillary Clinton during the debate, that like, so that he was always in the shot and like looming over her. And she said that she'd turn around and go, "What is wrong with you?" And like, that's the perfect, that's the perfect energy.
Yes, absolutely. Speaking of Trump, he's freaking out, or not. I mean, everything's fine over there. I say they won. They already defeated Joe Biden. They didn't even have to get to November. He says, so we're forced to spend time and money on fighting crooked Joe Biden. He polls badly after having a terrible debate and quits the race. Now we have to start all over again. Shouldn't the Republican Party be reimbursed for fraud in that everybody around Joe, including his doctors and the fake news media, knew he wasn't capable of running for or being president? Just asking. And then he says he's hedging when it comes to trying to debate Kamala. Speaking of debates, he says, my debate with crooked Joe Biden, the worst president in the history of the United States, was slated to be broadcast on fake news ABC, the home of George Slopadopoulos. That's actually a good insult. Sometime in September. Now that Joe has not surprisingly quit the race, I think the debate with whomever the radical left Democrats choose should be held on Fox News rather than the very biased ABC. Thank you. So he's already like, I don't want to, I don't want to debate Kamala Harris on ABC. But back to Harris, she's been endorsed by all 50 state party chairs, which is pretty big, including obviously House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, and then the maybe would be rivals. So people who you might assume could throw their name into their name into the ring, hat in the ring now, like Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan, Gavin Newsom of California, Pete Buttigieg of the Department of Transportation, that country, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, Mark Kelly of Arizona, J.B. Pritzker of Illinois, Bashir of Kentucky, and then other fools I don't know. So it's pretty
front runners, other fools,
and other fools we don't care about. No, so it's pretty much not a wrap, but those are the folks who've already endorsed her. Here's what I wanted to talk to you about, Nato, because she was the Attorney General of California for 7-8 years, and she was the District Attorney of San Francisco for, I believe, 2 terms. And I want to talk about where she stands on the issues. If I can actually scroll down, delete this. My scroll isn't working.
Can I offer?
Thank you. Wait. No. I've got it. I've scrolled.
Okay. I was going to help.
Help. Go ahead.
Because so first of all, like, one of the like weird and gross things is that like literally is that our former mayor Willie Brown, who's all like in his 80s, like,
you mean this Willie Brown, the one who Matt Walsh tweets Kamala Harris is Willie Brown's most successful mistress,
right? Like Willie Brown is at every opportunity like this week was like, yeah, I hit that.
He's like, I don't want you to forget.
Yeah, never.
No, but
forget.
They were actually together.
Yeah. And then, so she, like, San Francisco has a reputation for being like a, tech dystopia nightmare, but don't forget, people outside of San Francisco, that we're also corrupt, but we're corrupt in a stupid way. And so Kamala Harris got elected as district attorney in 2003 in the wake of a corruption scandal called Fajita Gate.
Love it. I love that.
Some cops had a fist fight. Some off-duty cops had a fist fight over a bag of takeout fajitas outside of a bar in the Marina District, which is one of the lamest, most bougie, posh neighborhoods in town.
Yeah, they spent way too much on those fajitas.
And then there was a cover-up of the fight, and it was in that somehow out of that scandal we get Kamala Harris as DA. She was, like, locally, she was known as super smart, but like not a progressive reformer. That she would, in terms of like issues around truancy of students, supporting locking up young people. She was not sympathetic to the city's sanctuary policy and supported, coordinating with immigration agencies around people who were undocumented, who got, caught up in law enforcement situations. but as she rose, she like they do, sort of moved to the main line of the Democratic Party and stayed with it, which fortunately has, like, for the most part, moved to the left over.
Well, one of the interesting things she did is she was endorsed by the police union when she was a DA, and then declined to seek the death penalty for a cop killer, which is great. I mean, that's like a low bar, in my opinion. I mean, we're leftists, that's a low bar, but still, she lost the endorsement of the police union because of that, and they were incensed, and that was a whole thing. As also Attorney General of California, she went after banks for their unfair mortgage practices, predatory practices, went after for-profit universities, oil companies like Chevron and BP for illegal practices and environmental damage. Under her, tutelage, in her term, California was the first state to adopt body cam policies in 2015. She launched implicit bias trainings, and then also had like a database for people who died while in custody. She pushed for a moratorium on the death penalty later while she was in the Senate. So it's interesting, and this I'm curious about your thoughts on it, because the whole like Kamala's a cop, Kamala's a prosecutor. I understand that, and that's very true. And generally, we don't like prosecutors, but I do think that compared to a lot of folks, her familiarity with the justice system and the ways it does and does not work for most Americans, and particularly, obviously, Black and brown Americans, poor Americans, that I think could be like a positive. Like that could be a plus for her, right? Considering what we've seen, which is, politicians who just say, rattle off, yeah, fund the police. And I'm not saying she won't denounce defund the police. That seems to be sort of like a barrier to entry of the Democratic Party if you're going to be in leadership. But I do think she has more intimate knowledge of that. And so where Joe Biden has done fuck all around criminal justice reform, I could look to Kamala to actually do something much more broad sweeping, much more, like more impactful. I mean, I know body cams and taking a database and, implicit bias training, that's all like mealy mouth lib shit. But that was years ago in the state. And so I actually think that would be helpful for her in the future. But I'm curious on your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, we can hold the contradictions. We can recognize that, like, at the moment, Kamala is like, we have a better hope to have a united front to stop fascism and be clear-eyed that the fucking job of the president of the United States is to be a competent manager of a capitalist war machine. And, I don't expect the president of the United States to not be that. So I want to get the best version of that I can get. And it's not like I'm not mad about the ways that they're not, but I also recognize, it's like in, California is consistently, like, we'll vote for the, like, Republicans are boxed out of state politics. And, Republicans can't get above 35% at any statewide race. And yet, like, we're still having, huge challenges getting any kind of, like, sort of squad type political challenger through the Democratic Party within California. So it's like, if we can't get, like, a true, like a Ilhan Omar type elected to Congress, from Oakland, or,
Wow, shots fired at Barbara Lee.
Actually, we may be about to, because Latifah Simon is as close as it gets. She's Barbara Lee's and Latifah's fantastic, but we can't get, like, in San Francisco right now, everyone, people are running for mayor with different versions of pro cop politics in San Francisco. So it's like, it's disappointing that our politics are what they are, but I'm not going to be mad at the president when, we can't, contend for power at, like, even at the most basic local levels.
That's very true. I mean, that's very true. I mean, that could take us down a whole winding road of California politics. But I do want to say that running for president in 2020, Kamala Harris was to the left of Joe Biden, absolutely, and did call him out for, like, supporting busing at the time, and then gladly was like, yes, I'll be your VP. But she was for Medicare for all. She had a whole plan laid out on her, website. She had a 10-year phase-in plan that involved buying into Medicare so basically creating a public option and allowing Medicare to be expanded over this 10-year phase to all people, not just some people, all people, which, mind you, I know people are like, what about Medicare for all now? Well, that was Bernie's plan. Bernie's plan was always, let's lower it to 55, then we'll keep on going. So it was always a phase in kind of thing. And she also was a co-sponsor of the Green New Deal. So that's not like a later in the, campaign. Okay, I like a Green New Deal. Not a Nancy Pelosi. Is that a green dream? It's a green dream, which is a Raffi song. But no, she was like a co-sponsor of it. So there are good things. And the biggest potential good thing, because all these are potentials, NATO is around Gaza. I think for a lot of us, and I've said this.
Wouldn't it be funny if I was like,
it's an enclave.
What is that?
It's an enclave run by
What's the fuss about?
Run by a really dope boy band named Hamas. Anyway, you should study them. But so there are a lot of signs that Kamala Harris will be better on Gaza, and I want to talk about some news this week. But before we go there, I do think, and Linda Sarsour said as much recently, that it is absolutely because of the mass outpouring of protests around Joe Biden's policies on Israel and support for Israel's genocide that he's gone. Now, the Pod Save guys won't give that win to us. The David Axelrods and the Ezra Kleins, they won't give that win to us. But it is there, and it's a win that we need to claim, and we absolutely need to remember it. It's the same way, that Barack Obama's victory was large part because he, didn't vote for the Iraq war because he wasn't there, and Hillary Clinton did. And the anti-war movement was not having it. And the anti-war movement was like, I'm done with 8 years of war. Fuck that. Let's get out of Iraq. And so we need to claim taking down Butcher Biden as part of this. Whatever you think of Kamala Harris and whether or not she's going to be better, but there are signs that she could be better. And I understand that there are also setbacks, but specifically former Biden officials who resigned as a result of Biden's foreign policy with Israel have said they think she would be better. Let's see. 4 other protest resignees who spoke with National Secretary Daley of Politico hope that a Harris presidency would introduce a more progressive Middle East policy. 2 current administration officials who've been critical of Biden's Israel policy also said they're hoping Harris will usher in a new era. With a President Harris, a 2-state solution may finally be possible. One of the officials who wasn't authorized to speak publicly told NatSec Daily. Also, Lily Greenberg Call, who's quit. The first, I believe, one of 2 Jewish officials who quit. One guy was in the military, quit as special assistant to the chief of staff at the Interior Department after a year over her opposition to Biden's unwavering support for the Israeli war strategy. Says her personal experience working for the vice president as Iowa caucus organizer for her primary campaign gives her hope. Quote, Harris must listen to the majority of American voters and use all of the administration's leverage, including by halting offensive weapons transfers, to push for a lasting ceasefire and hostage exchange. She said shortly after Biden dropped his bid for re-election Sunday, I've worked for Kamala. I know she'll do the right thing. Now, this is on top of, we know that she was about to give, a speech, I believe on the anniversary of Bloody Sunday, and her remarks about Israel were pretty strongly worded. The White House edited those remarks, and we found out about it. And she has said that she actually, according to the Wall Street Journal, just reporting today, that she's probably, if elected, not going to keep around Secretary of State Blinken or General Lloyd Austin. So that's huge. Getting rid of Blinken is fucking great. I want to see that dude start his bassist guitar tour in Tel Aviv, just full. He plays the bass and he thinks it makes him cool. Just fully the only country that will have you is Israel.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's right that one of the, there were lots of warning signs about Biden all along, but the fact that like the Gaza policy was going to it was very credibly going to cost him not just Michigan, but like youth voter turnout in general. And, like the argument that I kept having with liberals is like the job of a candidate is to win elections.
Yeah.
And, this is one of the lessons of being a union organizer is like, I've lost. It's never the workers' fault. You know what I mean? If we try to do an organizing drive and we lose, it's never the workers' fault. It's always the organizer's fault.
That's interesting. I mean, because that could easily go the other way. But you're totally right. And it's like, well, why didn't these stupid workers realize what was good for them? It's like, well, you didn't do the job.
Yeah, right. So, I think like it's like Biden's perspective it's still like hasn't moved beyond Yitzhak Rabin. Like,
No.
I mean, so like he hasn't sort of come to terms with, like when I talk to older people, there's just still this level of like wishing that the Israel that it was still in some Israel of their nostalgia,
Yeah.
and
It
not
exists
the
in their
Israel,
minds and their memories.
not the Israel that currently exists. And like, so, just for someone to be pragmatic, like about it and not like running on your refreshing change of pace. And she has some amount of cushion, let's not forget, to be able to take a different position because she fucks Jews. And
Dougie, second gentleman, is Jewish.
Oh yeah, that first gentleman dick goes a long way to her being able to, that they can't, that she's going to be shielded from allegations that she hates Jews or doesn't understand Jews,
Right,
because
right.
like they not
I mean, I say that I use that all the time. Like,
I know she doesn't only post pictures of like Passover, like your typical, but she'll post pictures with Dougie and like Shavuot and Simchat Torah, like the whole like Tisha B'Av, like
deep cut holidays.
The deep cut holidays.
Okay, so to that, and I think people will probably really want us to talk about Netanyahu because Bibi is coming this week. Tomorrow he's going to address Congress, and today he's meeting with effing Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago because of course he is. And according to reporting, Kamala Harris is not going to preside over the Senate while Benjamin Netanyahu speaks to Congress. Again, this was an invite from Republicans. It's one that, many people have said should not be happening, from Bernie Sanders to even former Israeli officials. A former Mossad head and Israeli business leaders have called on Republicans to not host Netanyahu for, obviously, I don't really think they're as concerned with war crimes as they are with his financial crimes. But hey, so is his buddy Trump, just sort of right in that. But she has decided to have a private meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu. So Kamala Harris will not attend his joint address to Congress, according to Politico, but will conduct a separate bilateral meeting with the Israeli Prime Minister this week at the White House, according to an aide who was granted anonymity. Apparently, in the one-on-one meeting with Netanyahu, Harris plans to reiterate her commitment to Israel's security and right to defend itself, but will also, quote, convey her view that it is time for the war to end in a way where Israel's secure, all hostages are released, and the suffering of Palestinian civilians in Gaza ends, and the Palestinian people can enjoy their right to dignity, freedom, and self-determination. Look, I know it's an aide, and I know it's not her, but like saying that we believe in the dignity and self-determination of the Palestinian people, that's a step. That's a nice step, other than like, yeah, of course I believe Palestinians are not animals. Of course, yeah. Peace. So we'll see, Nato. I mean, I think it's not insignificant. I think it sucks she's meeting with him. Fuck him. He's a racist piece of shit. He's absolutely going to say racist shit behind her back, just like we know he did with Obama. He's going to be like, what a DEI nominee. But the fact that she's not low-key endorsing him by being present during his dumbass address and choosing to do it privately, I think is good.
And right, and doesn't have to deal with the like just all of the scrutiny of like the optics around her having to sit behind him and applaud or not applaud
Yes.
and stand or not stand at every like, that she's taking herself out of that. Like, I'm sure I mean, I agree with you. Like, it's not enough, of course, but it's a refreshing change from like Biden doing nothing more ever than calling up Netanyahu and telling him to cut the malarkey.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I don't think, again, there are people who are like mad that she's spoken at AIPAC. Everyone's spoken at AIPAC, right? I do not think she would speak at AIPAC going forward, especially considering where their money comes. Now that we know their money comes in large part from Republicans supporting Republican candidates, supporting, centrist candidates against, Jamal Bowman and other progressives. So TBD, we will see. But Nato, before we, I think we're awaiting the arrival of James, but I did just want to put this up and just get do you understand this at all? This is, if you're listening, it's Kamala HQ's Twitter homepage, and the banner says Kamala HQ in a very particular font, sort of blurry sans serif undercase in Brat font. Nato, what do you know of Brat?
Look, I know that people like millennials and Gen Z are super excited about it. Like I had a union friend who like sent me the Brat album, and I put it on in the car, and my kid was like, "This is not good." So,
your kid who is Gen Z.
Yeah, but I was like, "This is not." But I have a Gen Z kid who like listens to David Bowie.
Yeah. With taste.
Did I tell you? Like, my kid turned to me out of the blue the other day, apropos of nothing, and said, "Daddy, is Pan-Africanism fundamentally antagonistic to Marxism?" So, like, that's where my kid is. So, my kid is 16.
What have you done?
Yeah.
And can you raise my kid for me?
But the yeah,
the
so
monster. What did you say?
I said yes. I said.
I mean, it's kind of Western. It's Eurocentric and Western focused.
Is that Pan-Africanism is fundamentally antagonistic to Marxists, although Marxists participated in Pan-Africanist movements because many Pan-Africanist movements were cross-class alliances against European imperialism, but ended up being directed primarily to replacing European elites with African elites,
right.
and didn't go as far as fundamentally transforming the economic system, which is what Marxists were after.
All right. Anyway, back to Brat.
Back to Brat is
lefty intellectual.
Like, I'm a Gen Xer. Brat is not for me. It's not about me. I'm glad people are excited. I don't need to be involved. I can't bear to be like that aging like Jewish like comedy writer who's Googling like,
Brat.
is this the new hyphy? Like, what's going on, kid?
You know what it is? Okay, wait. Really briefly, before I tell you my experience with it, so let's just hear someone who's even more clueless than we are.
I just saw it on Instagram. A couple of younger people that I have, that are connected to the Instagram. I said, "What is this? What is this Brat summer?" Because I thought he was calling her a brat, but it's not that Kamala Harris is a brat. She is Brat, and then I started listening to music, and I said, "Oh wow!" So we put out our own meme, and I'm immensely proud. I'm ahead of the curve with my colleagues.
We've issued a meme, ladies and gentlemen. That's Representative Mark Takano of California. I was saying to Paige that California really does produce the cringiest politicians. You're welcome for Kamala Harris. They exude, they excel in cringe. Takano's 63 years old. But yes, my introduction was basically the way my mom found out about Despacito, which was reading it in a New York Times article. The craze of Despacito. The Latin pop like mashup represent. I had to listen to her read this New York Times article about Despacito out loud, and that is truly me when it comes to Brat, which is an album by Charlie XCX. And the reason we're talking about it is because Charlie herself, mind you, this is not some Hillary Clinton Pokemon go to the polls. This is not some hot sauce in my bag Hillary Clinton shit, because Charlie, the pop star, brought this on herself by tweeting, Kamala is Brat, capital IS Brat. And everyone lost their shit, specifically Kamala HQ, who immediately obviously changed their banner. Now, here is Brat according to Charlie XCX. Charlie says that the word brat means you're just a girl who is a little messy and maybe says dumb things sometimes, who feels herself, likes herself, but then also maybe has a breakdown, but parties through it. It's honest, blunt, and a little bit volatile. That's Brat. I feel like she's kind of right. Like, Kamala is Brat. Like, Kamala is kind of a messy bitch. Like, she's like kind of cackly. We knew that like her campaign for president in 2020 was like super disorganized. She says what she feels. I don't think there's a lot going up. Like, I think she is smart, but I don't think she's necessarily like got a lot of convictions. Do you know what I mean? And she also wants to do what's popular. Like, she wants to party. Don't leave Brat at home. You know what I mean? Like, she wants to be at the party.
Can I say, so do we know that Charlie XCX is the correct pronunciation?
I don't know.
So my awareness of Charlie XCX is, thank you, Paige. The youth have spoken.
The youth have spoken.
So
Paige is very upset, by the way. Paige is very upset that Kamala Harris has co-opted Brat, because apparently Brat Summer's ruined, according to Paige. But like I said, Charlie brought this on, the world.
Well, so Charlie did the music for the greatest movie.
Wait, say it again. You cut out for a second.
Charlie did the music for the greatest movie of 2023, which was Bottoms.
Yes.
The raunchy lesbian teen fight club comedy.
That's why Rachel Sennett Sennett?
I don't know.
Whatever. That's why she was in her music video. But anyway, we're getting sidetracked.
Yeah. Like, I've probably seen that movie 5 times.
It's a great movie. It is a great movie.
So, got the Deb Marshawn Lynch, the Io Debris. It's all fire.
I know it's Io Edebiri. See, I know that. I know how to pronounce some things. Fuck you. The point is it's a cringe. Get used to it. Kamala is cringe, okay? And here's the other thing I want to say about Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris is peak dissociative politics. Like, all the memes about her are ironic. All the memes with her and Brat being Brat are ironic. Everything is ironic because everyone is so dead inside and numb to everything, because our world is so demonstrably worse than it was even 4 years ago. And yeah, we know we were in the middle of a fucking pandemic and things are somehow more perilous and scary now. That like, we're just like, who cares? Are you kidding me? Let's just beat Donald Trump and then we will fucking fight this Brat. I'm sorry, I will not say Brat anymore. We will fight this president when she's in office. But Jesus Christ.
And also that, like, she's, that so many politicians feel like so scripted and controlled and focus grouped and produced, and like that she's just seems that she is like, that she's like cackling and saying things where it's, it sounds like she's, hits maybe had a pill or a couple cocktails. She's feeling loose.
Definitely like a cocktail. She's loose.
What I so love about the coconut tree meme is that it's just like that perfect juxtaposition of something fucking ridiculous, the laugh, and then like erudition, like profound insight with perfect syntax. You know what I mean? like she thinks like she's writing she talks like she's writing term papers, and then that which you have become, like, nobody talks that way.
Well, for old time's sake, I agree with you, and let's enjoy.
You think you just fell out of a coconut tree? You exist in the context of all in which you live and what came before you.
I love
Okay.
my favorite part of this is when she starts to be like, and now I'm gonna do the fireside chat. First, I'm gonna do drunk mom fireside chat.
The two things I love about this is that no one in the room laughs, only her. Number one, so she's killing herself, and then number two, you exist in the context, and then the pause, then the hold for poignancy. Like it's like I am so ready for just to I don't
and one today. I'm sure they're gonna call.
I don't mind as presidents go, like when Bill Clinton was on the radio, like it made my skin crawl.
Mhm.
When Donald Trump was on the radio, it made my skin crawl. Like I am so ready for President Harris to just be like saying like crazy shit all the time.
Yeah.
Like every press conference, just to be like, like the pudding's ready or whatever, and then and that's why rent control for everybody. It's just like some like that one too.
You got to get your moles checked. Everyone needs. Doug had a big mole, and that's why we need Medicare for all. Everybody's entitled. Like that, I love it. It's just like it's. And what the other thing is, people are attacking her. Obviously, the right is for not having kids. Will Chamberlain, blue check mark on X, says real simple, under discussed reason why Kamala shouldn't be president. No children, but that I feel like maybe we're ready for like fun ant, drunk ant energy, like America needs some of that.
Well, but doesn't Doug have children?
Oh, but that doesn't count. I don't know if you've been paying attention lately, Nato, but Republicans have decided that children of your spouse that live with you, that you raise, don't count. They've done that for now many years.
So it's like their position is like, even though those children call her mom and she thinks of herself as their mom and has like mom type relationship with them, because it didn't directly like smash up her pussy.
Yep.
It doesn't count.
Nope. Oh yeah, especially. I mean, they're going after surrogacy and everything. But you know what? Look,
I've about had it with these Republicans.
I don't think I'm gonna vote for him no more.
Yeah.
So quickly, I wanted to, speaking of cringy people, Nato, we haven't talked about JD Vance and his rise. And he is, speaking of all the, soulless barons of technology, who live in our beloved San Francisco. They've now put all their money on JD Vance. All the venture capitalists have decided he's their boy. He's literally Peter Thiel's blood boy. And so they're riding hard for him. And here's Vance in Ohio. And he thinks he's crushing it, but he's most definitely not. This is one of many very, very awkward moments that I feel like you and I have like a little bit of I'm dying up here energy.
It is the weirdest thing to me. Democrats say that it is racist to believe, well, they say it's racist to do anything. I had a Diet Mountain Dew yesterday and one today. I'm sure they're going to call that racist too, but it's good. I love you guys.
Oh. You guys are Diet Mountain Dew is racist. No, man, I feel like most people were like, ew, you had a Diet Mountain Dew? Sounds gross.
It just it feels like, how Republicans, there was a period where like, and I'm sure they're still doing it, where like, they're so bad at jokes. Like,
yes.
Just because you can say something in the structure of a joke doesn't make it work as a joke. Like
if you're gonna say that, like, have a punchline. He was just trying to riff. He's like, maybe I'm a comedian now. Maybe I could just riff this one. They're gonna say Diet Mountain Dew's racist because, oh Jesus, come to me. Give me a punchline.
Help. Yeah, it's just the there was a while where Republicans were like, it was my pronouns are I love guns or whatever. Like, my pronouns are fuck and you. Like there was like that was their move was some dumb pronoun joke. And it was like very it was always
They're not done with it
cringy.
yet. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a new Netflix, I mean, definitely like a new Netflix like stand-up special, which is just everyone's best my pronouns are joke, just the best of my pronouns.
How many of them are Chappelle?
I bought that. It's like the SNL best of Chris Farley, best of my pronouns jokes.
Best of my pronoun joke.
Okay, I want to bring in to the Bitchuation Room. He is here back in DC. Thanking him for joining so last minute. Founder and president of the Arab American Institute, who served on the DNC's executive committee for 16 years. Please welcome James Zogby back to the show. James, oh hello. I'm swapping on you. How are you?
Fine. I would have worn my dress-up shirt, but I just got in from the train station.
Oh, please, we're very casual.
I don't even have pants on, James.
I didn't think about that.
James, I wanted to talk to you about obviously the news. Biden dropping out. Kamala Harris now being the effective nominee. You had a plan or a thought about a week ago. You wrote about a 28-day path forward for the Democratic Party, which involved maybe like a mini primary. And it doesn't necessarily seem like the DNC is shaping up to do a mini primary, considering so many people who might run against Kamala have already endorsed her. But tell me your thoughts on the process that could be unfolding at the DNC.
Well, the plan actually that I wrote was 3 weeks ago. I wrote it back 2 days after the debate. And it was clear to me then that President Biden just had to step aside. I wasn't calling on him to step aside. I just wanted to write a letter to Jamie Harrison to say, if he does step aside, don't play chicken little because it's not the end of the world. There is a process that can move forward. It should not be a coronation, but it actually should be an open convention. And I laid out the process, how the open convention would work and how candidates would get endorsements from DNC members. And then we would host town hall meetings that would be televised, and it would be a kind of an exciting build up to the convention.
Yeah.
It was very clear to me that Kamala Harris would win. But nevertheless, I thought she'd be a stronger candidate, and the party would be in a stronger position if there had been this process. Well, the president dragged it out too long. When former governor of Oklahoma, David Walters, endorsed the idea and actually enlarged it and developed it a bit. And we did an op-ed in the Hill about it. Actually, the day it appeared, the day that Biden announced that he wasn't going to run, we were down to a 28-day plan. It still could have worked, but it was clear that that from the minute he announced that that the vice president had her ducks all lined up, and it was pretty much a done deal. Look, I think an open, but we're not going to have it, and so we'll make the best of what we got.
Now, let me get your clarity on that. I mean, it seems like all 50 Democratic state leaders delegate leaders have endorsed Kamala Harris, right? We're not even looking at sort of a Bernie Hillary situation 2016. But to your mind, it would have been more Democratic, or just sort of the perception of it being more Democratic if we had this 28-day sort of rapid fire primary. You guys write that a lot of for your colleagues, this discussion of the issue has been verboten. But the idea is for the process to be transparent, open, and energizing. And then this is an incredible plan on how it could have worked, but you're saying now that that's probably not going to happen. And does it make you any less, excited, or you feel like it will lose the voting base because it's not as an open convention, or it's not? Yeah, it's not. We're not going to have this primary process.
That's the first part. Joe Biden stepped down. That's the important part. What has been concerning me, basically for a couple of years now, not just now, is that he has shown signs of frailty. And everybody points to the State of the Union speech, how exciting it was and all that. But that was an exception to what has been a very difficult couple of years for him.
Yeah.
It's not age, I might add, because I know Bernie Sanders well, and Bernie's a different kind of age. I mean, he's old, Biden, but his mind is much more flexible. He takes in new ideas. He is able to combine complex thoughts into just amazing political analysis. I've not seen that from the president, but clearly over Gaza, that was the breaking point for many of us, because we saw that a guy fixed in place with a certain frame of mind, allowing what was clearly a genocide to unfold, and no one in his inner circle challenging him. And tens of thousands of people paid the price for inflection, for
oh, hang on.
That cost him support in my community, but also among blacks, among Latinos, among Asians, among young people, among progressive Jews. And there was a Democratic defeat, and people were deflated. What's important to look at, these polls that you're seeing, where they 50-48 or 50-49, pardon my French, but that's bullshit. Because in July or August, there's no 99% of voters who've made their mind up. These are polls where pollsters are pushing people. Well, which way? Well, okay, I know you're not, but how about if this were the case? What the real numbers are is about 25-30% of the American people not thinking about voting at all.
Yeah.
Counted in this mix, not just the ones who give you an opinion, but the ones who say they're not. In the polling that we've done, we find a significant number of people saying they're not only not enthusiastic, but they're not voting at all. And the people who vote at all, there are people. They're not the Trump people. There's three kinds of voters up until the announcement of Biden leaving. There are people who love Donald Trump, there are people who hate and fear Donald Trump, and there are people who don't think it makes a difference and they're not going to vote. There were no, other than party leaders who, we love Joe Biden. There aren't people out there who are just excited about Joe Biden. People can get excited about Kamala Harris. She's now used that opportunity to excite people and bring them back into the fold of people who want to vote for her. That's what we thought a primary would do. A mini primary would create energy and excitement. It's not going to be. The burden is now going to be greater for her to do it, but I think she has the capability of doing it. We just have to see her get out and do it. And I think, it's going to be a little more difficult for her because she won't have the energy of a primary.
Right.
But nevertheless, I think she can do it. She's just got to get out and do it.
Right.
It's, as we think about the democratic process around it, I mean, it's like one of my very bleak ways of coping with my despair. Well, it looks like I cut out.
Yeah, Nato, say it again. We're having some technical issues here, but it's
right.
fine, y'all.
I'm back.
Say it, Nato. Say it.
I was going to say, one of the ways that I've been coping with my despair in recent months is thinking like, well, not everybody dies during a dictatorship. You know what I mean? Like, and so, even in, even in countries that, all countries have different ways to respond to public opinion. If you've been watching House of the Dragon, that the houses have to think about the small folk, even if there's no formal democratic procedure for them to express their views. And so, it's sort of interesting to see how our political system is responding to a public in a way that isn't expressed directly through like a technical voting procedure.
Right, right. I mean, one way they did that, James, was by the uncommitted vote in the primary, right? It was a way that folks who were rightfully incensed at Biden's support for Netanyahu and his genocide could say, look, I'm withholding my vote from you until you course correct. And as you're saying, Kamala's got a steep road ahead of her. What can she do on this issue? We know, and we talked briefly about how she's going to meet with Netanyahu privately, won't preside over his public speech, but especially, in states like Michigan, where the Arab American vote does count and can be the difference. What are your thoughts on what she needs to say and how she needs to differentiate herself?
It's twofold. One of it is, part of it is that she has to say the right things. The other is she has to do the right things. The saying the right things is going to be easier for her because she said many of them. She's already given speeches showing real compassion. She has actually called for Palestinian self-determination. Nobody else has ever done that before. She's actually been techniques or the tactics rather of warfare that Netanyahu has. She said the things that Joe Biden hasn't, or maybe even couldn't or wouldn't say. She said. The question now is, what is she going to do? And I'm glad she's not going to preside over the Senate during the joint speech. But the big test will be on Thursday. If I don't expect her to do, oh, Bibi, I haven't seen you in so long, and the big bear hug thing. She's not going to do that. But what I'd like to see is a very stern, a very firm, and a very decisive stance that this has gone on too long. It's got to stop. And I'm hearing indications that may be. Mm-hmm. Look, I think that nobody should meet with him at all, because understand, this is the fourth time he's been to the U.S. And in each of the four times, he's been brought by Gingrich, Boehner twice, and now Johnson, for the sole purpose of insulting a Democratic president.
Yep.
First, it was ending the Oslo process. Then it was challenging Obama on the 67 borders in 2011, and with Gingrich, with Boehner, and then in 2015, it was the Iran nuclear deal, and now it's the pressure that Biden was putting on Netanyahu. You bring a foreign leader to humiliate your own president, and the vice president and the president never should meet with him at all. She's going to meet with him, but she has to use it to be firm.
Yeah.
No embrace. That would be, to me, an important signal that we're in a different ball game now.
No fist bump with MBS of Saudi Arabia.
Wouldn't be insulted at all, because, frankly, they hate this guy too, and she's got the wherewithal to do it. She needs to do it.
James, can I ask you more broadly about this sea change in public opinion, in American public opinion, when it comes to green lighting and co-signing Israel's actions in Gaza, but also in the West Bank? I mean, this is some outpouring of activism I've never seen in my entire life around this issue. And as we talked about earlier, 7 unions just issued a joint call for no more weapons to be sold to Israel. We're talking the Flight Attendants Union, American Postal Workers Union, International Union of Painters, Education Association, NEA, and SEIU, and UAW, and the United Electrical Workers. I mean, this is not nothing. What is it? Something like 6 million, representing 6 million workers. I mean, it's huge. So just in your lifetime, and I know your brother's a pollster, I mean, just give me your sense of like the tides turning on this, and possibly what that could mean for another, if Kamala gets elected, another Democratic administration.
Something's happened over the last decade that I think is of enormous consequence. The Women's March, the March for Our Lives Against Guns, the George Floyd Black Lives Matter, and now this. And the intersectionality of all of these movements. What was startling, I remember it was during COVID, I was sitting on my porch watching kids in the neighborhood, in my neighborhood, which was all white neighborhood, mobilizing and putting up things on the what do you call it, the telephone poles, about March for Our Lives, blah, blah, blah. I mean, not Black Lives Matter. Mm-hmm. neighborhood has never had more Black Lives Matter signs in it. When Vice President Pence moved into our neighborhood before he was inaugurated, my wife got hundreds of gay pride flags and distributed them. There were 273 gay pride flags in my neighborhood because Mike Pence moved there temporarily for it. That had never happened before. And so, look, when I started this work in the 70s, we'd have 50 people in front of the White House saying, Carter, Carter, you should know we support the BLO. Because it was, and they were all recent immigrant Palestinian guys. And now you've got 10,000 people. You've got today on the Capitol, hundreds of young Jews getting arrested, calling for let Gaza live. Never before. And people have embraced this issue as part of the package of issues that define a generational view that is unprecedented. You're absolutely right. And I'm still trying to, sort of digest it because frankly, those of us who are old timers, we've been passed by. These kids have taken this in a whole new direction and it's really exciting and validating in many ways. And, I can, take comfort in the fact that this movement has become part. The Palestinian movement was outside of progressive politics. When I tried to join the Coalition for a New Foreign and Military Policy in the 70s, they invited me to apply. I applied. We won the vote. And 3 Jewish groups said, if you let the Arabs in, we'll withdraw. They came to me and said, would you mind withdrawing your application because we don't think we can accept you? Jesus. And I was humiliated at the meeting when that happened. That's not going to happen anymore. And, and now the Jewish kids complain, well, they won't let Zionist groups in the coalitions. Well, guess what? I know what that feels like. And it ain't good. And I think you ought to let them into coalitions, but the coalitions define the terms of your joining. And if part of the terms of your joining is you support liberation of Palestinian rights, if any group wants to join, fine, let them in. We support all the goals of the Coalition for a New Foreign and Military Policy. The fact that we were pro-Palestinian, which had nothing to do with the coalition at the time, we weren't even pushing the issue. We were there because of arms sales in the broader Middle East. We were there because of the links with Central America and South Africa, etc. We couldn't get in. At this point, it's a totally different collection of groups that form the progressive coalition in politics, and it's brilliant. I love it.
Well, I mean, that's it's a kind of a deeper conversation in NATO. I'm sure you've seen some of it, but this idea that, groups who don't allow like explicitly Zionist organizations to join them in coalition are being, called anti-Semitic, of course, because anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism are conflated. And I kind of, I understand, James, you're saying like if there are specific terms on how you join the coalition, like if you believe in Palestinian self-determination or whatnot, but I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I'm a little bit like, I think this is all another piece of Hasbara to convince us that there's secret anti-Semites in the Palestinian liberation movement and like people who want the genocide to end. But what they're actually saying is like, folks equate Zionism with colonialism. I'm sorry. They do. Young people do now. They do that now. And back to NATO, what you were saying, it's like, yeah, the idea of Israel in your mind, this like promised land, milk and honey, kibbutz, socialist like paradise, that's not the reality right now. And the ICJ just has their ruling this week that we didn't talk about, that the occupation is, yes, in fact, illegal under international law. So that includes the apartheid wall, the separation barrier, that includes checkpoints, that includes the settlements. I mean, this is what we've been talking about for so many years. And of course, the proof is in the pudding in terms, or in the punani, as NATO would say, in terms of what will actually happen with this information. But that's a massive, massive ruling from the ICJ.
I was going to, James, I'm a comedian union organizer hybrid. I work for SEIU, and like sort of below, I mean, I think one of the things that I'm seeing is like below the level of like the high level policy and the big marches and stuff, like this issue is bubbling up like from the ground up. Like I'm involved in workplace grievances where workers are being threatened with discipline for putting up a ceasefire sign in their cubicle, and then the union is like throwing down to defend their right to express themselves in that way. Where people are like, wearing keffiyeh at work or what. I mean, there's those kinds of things. I work with a arts college where where people, they're teaching about Palestinian artists the art of the occupation within the art school, and donors are threatening to withdraw, to cancel endowments over it. So it's like, what's so incredible about it is how intimate the struggle is. Like people are quickly realizing that this issue touches their lives wherever they are, and that it's like, it's a really like, pick a side moment, and then it sort of comes crashing through every institution in society, which is sort of incredible. Like my kid is organizing school walkouts of high school students in San Francisco.
Hell yeah. Zogby, or James, sorry. I go with a more interesting name. James, one question for you, because as Nato said,
the real Jay-Z.
Yeah, the real Jay-Z. The issue of Gaza is touching every single facet, and as Nato said, in the workforce and whatnot. Okay, but what about this election? I have a theory, which is part of the reason we did not hear more, or there was not more serious attention paid to Biden's mental state, was because there was a war on, and folks kind of closed ranks around Biden and his support for Israel, especially at a time when there was so much criticism of him, and we were all being called Trumpers, people who wanted Trump back just because we were criticizing him around the support of genocide. How much do you think Gaza, whether admittedly or not admittedly, played into Biden's decision to leave?
I don't know what the rules of the show are, but if I disagree with the host, does that get me?
Yes. Absolutely.
Completely right. Okay. No, I actually think that is even more disturbing than that. And that is, there was a bit of the emperor's new clothes syndrome playing out, which I've seen in Washington way too many times. I've worked with a politician who'd gone out and given a speech. It was horrible. People were murmuring, and 5 minutes into it, 10 minutes into it, you couldn't hear what he was saying because it was so loud. 15 minutes into it, half the crowd had left. And you get backstage, and his staff are walking up to him saying, "That was great. You really hit a home run. That was just perfect." And then he turned to me and said, "What did you think?" And I said, "It wasn't working. It looked like he hadn't read it before." And people say to me, "Why did you say that?" I said, "Because somebody had to tell him the truth." They don't tell the truth to the guy. And so it doesn't surprise me at all that when he was firm, "I'm not leaving," that there was nobody around him telling him. And look at the people around him in the foreign policy world. I mean, look, there are no Zbigniew Brzezinskis. There are no Scowcrofts. There's no Anthony Lakes. There's no independent Jim Bakers. You might agree or disagree, but these were grown-ups who had independent minds who'd go into the boss and say, "You really screwed up. This isn't working. We got to change." The people around Biden were largely staffers of his from when he was in the Senate. And whatever the boss says, they do. Did you ever read Chris Buckley's White House Mess? It's a funny book about how the White House works and how people don't want to say no because they don't want to lose their place. Right. They don't want being in. And so they will agree, and they'll suck up and butter up and lie to keep the boss happy. And I think that was more what was going on here. And that disturbs me more than anything. More than that it was a cover-up for Gaza, it's that nobody told him the truth. When he said these things, "Nobody can win but me. I'm the only one that can do it." It's because everybody around him is saying that to him.
Right.
Only input. I gave a speech one time on the presidency at Bard College, and I said, presidents aren't the captain of the team, they're the captive of the team. The information they get is largely vetted by the people who are close to them, and when they then give instructions, and I want you to do this and do that, he gives it to these people, and And then how did it go? Oh, it went great, boss. It was a brilliant idea. It really worked well. Boy, you really,
Yeah.
and so there's no sense of nothing out there is working. This isn't real. And politicians don't know they're losing till they lose.
Right.
And that there's a danger in a democracy when we operate that way, which is why I wanted to see an open primary, because I thought that the best way to let people know what's going on is to let people know what's going on.
Yeah.
Everybody galvanizes, oh, we're all for Kamala, 50 states for Kamala, every congressman for Kamala. Then there's a sense that I can do no wrong. And frankly, it would have been made her a stronger candidate to be challenged within before she gets the vicious challenging from without.
Yeah, Bernie. I agree with that. I also think that there's like a time. I think people were scared about timing. I think it's true that sort of left you open to a right-wing attack. And, Democrats are so, I think, overly fearful of the right. I think we need to be fearful of the right, but not to the point where it hampers the, strategy or a robust discussion. And, but they couldn't handle it in 2016 when we were in DNC and it was like chance of Bernie, Hillary, and people were like, oh no. And it's like, no, that's a healthy democracy.
Doing the whole thing about doing an early vote and have it be pre-taped and scripted, just total fear of the unknown, of the unexpected. What used to make, and you guys are all young, but when I was young and watched conventions back in the 60s, and the Kennedy one in 1960, totally wild event. People watched it wall to wall because you didn't know what was going to happen. That's what made it exciting, and that's what made the outcome so energizing when it finally happened. I have
the tape on Betamax.
What they did was they tried to script them, and the more they script them, the less TV coverage they get because they're so boring.
Right.
And so now, instead of from the beginning to the end, only place you get that is C-SPAN, but the networks do 1 or 2 hours at most a night, because who the hell wants this scripted infomercial, which is what they've become?
Yes. Well, I will be at the scripted infomercial. I'm sure you'll be there as well. We will see you in Chicago. But James Zogby, where can people find you and follow your work?
You can follow me on Twitter at JJZ1600, JJZ1600, or they can write me at JZogby, JZOGBY, at aaiusa.org, JZogby.usa.org. And in Chicago, we're doing 3 days events on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday from 1 to 4 at Rainbow Push. We're working with Rainbow Push. We're doing one panels on dark money, the role dark money plays, the congressional legislation silencing debate. We're doing one on voices from Gaza that should be heard but won't be heard at the convention.
Oh, nice.
Session on the platform. We're going to take a look at the Democratic Party platform, and then we're going to do a final session on the role that Gaza is playing, that Palestine is playing in progressive politics, and what this means for the future of the Democratic Party. I think it's really a set of exciting things, and we've got some really great people, Nina Turner, and Andy Levin, and Ro Khanna, and some really good folks who are coming, and I hope folks can join us. And if you write to me at that J Zogby, we'll get you the information how to come.
Oh, hell yeah. Well, I mean, we'll put it in the description with this podcast. But thanks so much for joining, James. Appreciate you as always. And thank you, Nato. Where can people find you and follow your work?
Hey, everybody. Mr. Nato Green on Instagram, and Nato Green on the other thing. And I have a couple albums out. Please buy them on Bandcamp. Otherwise, I'll be back on my bullshit.
All right. Well, don't make us wait for too long for you, but so good to see you, buddy. Take care. And thank you all for sticking around, for being here. Let's read some comments and then fuck off into the evening. Benjamin Morrill says, thank you for Kamala to Jesus last night. Joe being the worst has kept her from our eyes. I needed more info, was going to vote anyway, and wanted to feel good about voting for once. Yeah, I don't know if I think we can feel good about voting for Kamala. I do. Especially since it's a vote against fascism. And I also think that, look, I also think the idea that like the vice president is somehow empowered to do a whole ton is just ridiculous. Like the leash that they keep on Kamala is so short. And also sticking her with like, hey, you'll be the one to stop all the migration. You're like, okay, Jesus. Oh, one of the harder issues. Thanks. I thought it was just doing pancake breakfast. I love going back to the pancake breakfast. Jody Odell, thank you so much for gifting those memberships. Pondering Politics says, just saw your latest Piers appearance. Keep dunking on these centrist losers. That one was fun. I'll share that. It was quite fun, and I can't believe how long I had to be on that. Roller Dragon, how much did Sean get paid for that speech? Sean O'Brien, yeah, who knows? But you're right. I mean, he's just trying to be, he's trying to get in with the top dog if indeed Trump wins. If he doesn't, he's going to lose his position. Still Alive says, anyone else feeling unified and ready to defeat Trump once and for all? Fuck yeah, I am. Anno Domini says, speaking of coup, looking forward to seeing you on a recently dropped Piers video. Yes, indeed. Robert, thanks for your super chat. The only thing left for the right is a Florida-style judicial coup. If SCOTUS hands 2024 to Trump, who would lose by the popular vote by 10 million? Well, God or Goddess help us. Yeah, I mean, they could. Look, I don't think that their legal argument for keeping Joe Biden on the ballot has any legs whatsoever. We'll see what happens in Ohio. They might try and keep the nominee from the ballot because they've got their ballot deadline was like August 11th and they changed it. I know that another state has like an August 16th deadline. Again, these are deadlines that happen before the convention. So again, it might be a virtual thing. But yeah, I wouldn't put it past them. Heritage Foundation monkeys are working round the clock to figure out what to do. Unlucky Superstition says, let her laugh 2024. And Owen the Schmoopy Dragon said, AIPAC is going to be all over Kamala. She will cave to them for sure. They always do. I don't know, Roller. I don't know. I'm not sure. Stillwater 757 says, Fran is Brat. Why, thank you. Paige, I can hear you rolling your eyes. Roller Dragon says, we're done with decorum. Time to flip the fucking tables and fight. Groove Dragon, BB and Trump ought to be in a cell together. Agreed. If only we could just encircle Mar-a-Lago this afternoon. Props on YouTube. I agree in open primaries what should happen. Regardless, I'm not voting for Trump. And SHK says, I hope she kicks him in the coconut. And with that, guys, the fart song, the ceremonial fart song here on the Bitchuation Room, thanking every patron at $10 or more. New patrons, thanking the Twitch subs, thanking the members on YouTube. Here we go. Yeah. I'm not going to start rapping, but it sounds like I am. Thank you so much, Manga206, for subscribing on Twitch, and Willie Gus for subscribing 3 months strong. XX Loop also. Over to Calm Like Tom, subscribed for a month. Chris Huggy gave out a sub on Twitch. D. Metzer also. Chris Huggy been around for 16 months. Coke the Dope resubscribed. For the love of God, Kamala, do not gaslight us about Palestine. Indeed. And thank you to all of the new patrons at $10 or more. Hang on, let me scroll. I'm scrolling. Elham Shabahat. Elham, what a blast from the past. Thank you, girl. Robert Jamnick as well. Thank you so much. To the big tippers, Christopher Seek, Christopher Snow, and Ruth RW. You're wonderful. Also, just joined at the $10 tier, Nader Hernandez. Thank you so much. You're the best. Thank you to everyone who makes this show possible. To Paige Omek, to Maximilian Inhofe, to Andy Vasoyan. We're streaming Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Fridays, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. Again, that Wednesday show is for the patrons and the members. You get a bonus episode. Follow us on all the things. Bitchuation Room on Twitter, Bitchuation Pod on TikTok and Instagram. And until next time, fight the power, fuck the patriarchy, free Palestine, and don't just bitch about it, be about it. Bye-bye.